or UK, for example, you are choosing a job. Do I report to this one or this other one? Because there is a balance. So there is some work to do there, which is also tied up to manufacturing. I am going to finish. Bwana Osomo, thank you very much again for the compliments. Stock market, next year what to do. I think I answered. The issue is, there is no defined path. You know, to do an economic trajectory of anything, you take some period of time to make deductions. I am here in the river. As I said again, I don't want to be academic. Look at it this way, guys. So, 3 years ago, if you were asked to describe me, what was coming to your mind first? Hata umesema. Exactly. Very good. You would associate me with the group or the team I am associated with. Is it? Take any person on the other side. You also don't struggle to define them there. That is one thing we have to also know as Kenyans, that it's good we know our leaders first for who they are before they join in with anyone. First understand, if, for example, you have a choir here of ACK Kitengela, and you have another choir of Catholic Church Kitengela, and there is a very good singer there with a bass or alto or whatever. Then when you are asked, yule anaitagwa nani? Unasema ni, sire ni yule the lady wa... Yes. Ukiulizwa that young man with a bass, utasema, si ni yule mtu wa bass wa... You see what I mean? Yet, that person, they have their own identity. As a person who, they have their own bass, they put in into that choir. So I have had that privilege and I'm grateful. It came unplanned. That I have had a chance also to be me. Being you is important. Bowed up into a team. Let's first know, are they a striker? Is it a defender? Is it a goalkeeper? Who is that person? Motoma asked a very good question. And because I've answered most of them in the previous questions, I'll come into where you asked about. Is it about these leaders or about us as Kenyans? There is something around there. What I've seen, nations evolve. I try to talk to her in my mother tongue, she can't understand. That is what it was supposed to be. Or even if she can understand, this Kiswahili comes first and my mother tongue comes second. That is where our biggest problem is. And that is where politics exploits. Look, for example, in 2024, the nation of Kenya, in terms of the people who came out, was a total nation of Kenya. But when politicians noticed, the nation, when it is united, changes can happen, they went back into conclaves. So they called in tribal chiefs, went into a table, shared power, actually did worse the grievances that were there in 2024. Now Kenya is in a worse state than then. That the same office people were to march on that Thursday now has four times budget, and they are telling you, you do what you can do. Tumeugana sisi. Nani wameugana ni nyinyi? Are you getting what I'm saying? So that is a big tragedy that, yes, nations evolve, but I wish we can fast track that evolution. There was Bwana Wilson, When are you running? Yes. When are we run? Anyway, thank you very much, our senior. I have heard you, but politics, what I've learned, before you say something, think about it well, plan well, don't take your supporters for granted. So when you are actually saying something, say it and do it. And when that time is there, we leave everything to the Almighty. Kanyotu, unajua ukiitwa Kanyotu tunakuogopa. But he asked a very, very important, in fact, I actually thought that is the topic I would be invited to talk about. Iran, what do we see in Kenya and what are the opportunities? Let me tell you here, today, Iran. What is happening in Iran is more than 200 rallies we can do in Kenya. Politically, what is happening in Iran has a bigger effect than 200 political rallies we can do in Kenya. In Kenya, first of all, you asked, can we actually even deal with the shocks? Let's ask ourselves first, what is it that we need to do, first of all? You heard me last week talking about oil, the whole week, from Monday to Friday. I was going everywhere, I was talking about oil. Because I know these people. Because I know them. And I know when I look at them what they are planning. So I decided, let me show them that Kenyans know that the stock in Kenya did not come now. Because that's what they could have purported. We are now over that now. The second thing is that Kenyans must have a conversation. Let no one in government, and let me say it very clearly here, let no one think they'll come next month, talk about oil and blame everything else except their own policies. In terms of oil, you can only change two things. One is the landing cost. Two is levies and taxes. As a non-oil producing country, there is very little you can do with landing cost. But you have everything you can do about levies and taxes. The price of fuel in Kenya, 50% is levies and taxes. So I want to tell the Ministry of the Department of Petroleum, EPRA, nyinyi wazee wa serikali, ebu kwanza msuspend hizo rallies zote. You come to Nairobi and plan about Kenya and what Kenyans expect next month. Because many times we take Kenyans for granted. You go around in rallies, but the fundamental things, we come to them last minute. Kenya from today, I actually would expect the cabinet would have met to first of all remove the 7 shillings that were put in 2024. That will be the starting point. The second starting point is that a time has now come, the 8% VAT that was introduced by this government, a time has come, ile mumechukua imetosha. These are extraordinary times. They require extraordinary measures. Because that is the only thing is in our control. Why? If you come and load in all these costs, they are illegal. Opportunities. How I see it. So oil prices, you can see it's like a seesaw. When you go to trading economics, that's the site I use mostly for data. You see crude oil prices. When you see red, you see Dow Jones red, green. When you see green, in terms of oil prices going up, Dow Jones, you see red. It is, in my economy, it is the most predictive, I think, science there can be. That as oil prices climb up, the markets go down. And they don't consult immediately. Right now, Trump will come and say, oh, we are now protecting the Strait of Hormuz. Immediately, you see a red in oil, you see a green in the markets. That talks to us that, yes, we need to do what we must do as a country that has overtaxed its oil, but also as a dividend, they are likely to sustain. They can't, because you have inflation to deal with. That's monetary tightening. That compounds our debt situation. I hope I am communicating to you, my brother. It's very technical. So the shocks will go beyond oil. They'll go to debt, they'll go to forex, etc. But, very lastly, on that issue, my brother talked about dollar. You know, when we come to TV, we have stabilized the dollar. You must have heard those speeches. We got it when it was 160. We have brought it down and stabilized. These are the realities. The dollar, Kenya shillings, was 119 to 120 during the day of swearing in. It is now around 128. The 2022 one or the current one? Now, you can take your phone after this meeting. Just go. A lack of independence that was being seen in terms the ceiling has gained. It is the dollar that has lost. And if you want to know whether you are right or wrong, now move away from the dollar, come to the euro and pound. The euro was 116 the day of swearing in. It is now 150. It's not my figures, it's figures. The pound was 136. It is now 170. We have stabilized the shilling. And those are the short stories. At the river and industry, lastly, I concur with you, Thika, at the river. Even my own father used to live in Kiadutu in Thika. They were going there because, yes, he was a carpenter, but there were more people to Tegenezea Viti. Nampak, Del Monte, all those other companies. Polisac, here it's cement, steel. The composition of GDP is primary production, secondary, and tertiary. But the most important of all those, which becomes an anchor to all the economies that have grown, is the secondary one, which is manufacturing. Because they bring synergies from primary. Primary means when you talk about cement company, clinker is the primary production. And when you talk about, let's say, Del Monte in Thika, that in Anasi is the primary production. The secondary production is the industry itself. Now, clinker inatoshana na hii chupa, ikigizwa tu kwa hiyo factory, the same way inatoka pale na value of multiples of the clinker than 17. So what manufacturing does is first of all to increase productivity. And that is why it should be very primary. Let me not give so much details into it, but just say, maybe we can discuss it on another day. The biggest problem Kenya has when it comes to manufacturing. You know, we can talk. We are bringing companies, we are doing this and that. One thing, it's called power. Power. And don't look at me like that. Me, I'm just a small-time guy over there buying a few shares, which I am not involved in. I'm just talking about the sector. Whether we like it or not, we have to address radically. Forget about distribution. Production. That's where the problem starts. Kengen has maybe 70% of our market share of power production. But you realize maybe the money that goes to producers, maybe they get less than half. What does that tell you? That the other 30% who are dependent power producers, they get more money, they are paid more money than the one we pay as consumers. Actually, Kengen subsidizes their power. Why? Because all of them, majority, they are vehicles of patronage. Give me one power producer in Kenya of a person you know. Athi, tunaendaga na yeye church. Just tell me one. There is, I can say here, other than President Mwai Kibaki, there is no other leader who is not involved in independent power production in Kenya. It is to that level. You take or you don't, you still have to pay me. But that's not the problem, the pricing. So, when this problem starts there, the industry now becomes very expensive.